Welcome to the Skin Philosophy Edit. We are here with Imogen Pickering today. Imogen is the owner of Sister Brand. So Sister Brand is an amazing company that supports women in business, specifically for branding their business. Now, I came across this company and I really loved what they did. I've done their courses myself and really loved the way they analysed everything. And Imogen does a great job of like going through the courses and everything. So yeah, we're delighted to welcome her on board.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much.
So basically what we wanted to know is, first of all, about your business. So obviously everyone is like, their own businesses, their own, goals. How did you get your business set up? How did you start everything like that?
Sure. So it's actually quite a long story, so I apologise. But I feel like it's so important to tell the full story, because I think there's so much, particularly on social media, there's this just projection that it has to be this overnight success. You have to get it right the first time. Whereas my journey has been like very much not like that. It's been a bit of a, not a struggle. Struggle's not the right word, but there's been a lot of wrong turns. There's been a lot of mishaps. There's been a lot of kind of things that have led me to where I am today, where I feel like I'm just so aligned and so happy with what I am. But for me, so I like to call myself a kind of accidental entrepreneur, because I never, ever, ever thought in a million years I would be running a business. I went to a very academic all-girls school where all of my girlfriends, who are still my closest girlfriends, were all highly academic, all have gone on to be lawyers, accountants, all these amazing things. And I was creative. But I was kind of made to believe then that creativity was never kind of like a viable career path. So I always felt like a bit of a black sheep. I felt like intellectually I wasn't on the same level as everyone else, because I was in that very academic environment. And that's where kind of like a lot of my like insecurities, I think, began with what I could achieve, which fed into this whole journey of entrepreneurship. And cut a long story short, I went to university and I studied media and communications, which I literally just picked because someone else was doing it, didn't know anything about it, but is actually very closely aligned with what I do now. And I loved it. I was actually really good at it. And I was like, oh, wow, like this is something that is, viewed as academic, and I'm actually good at it. I actually get it. So when we graduated, the course was kind of, everyone went into marketing. That was the role that, the course was kind of preparing you for. So I came home again. I live in Jersey, which is a very small island between England and France. And it has a very large finance industry. My goal really, like I would have loved to have moved to London to work in marketing for, a big fashion company. That's what I wanted to do eventually. But coming home, I thought I'm going to be at home for a bit. And I got my first professional marketing job in the finance industry, which was not for me. Like I just sold my soul to the finance industry. It really just sucked all the creativity out of me. And after about a year, I was like, right, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I'm going to go traveling. Prior to going traveling, I started kind of playing around with creative projects on the side. And this was kind of about 2015, maybe. Instagram was very new. And I don't know if anyone remembers, I've just turned 30, so anyone my age kind of remembers early years of Instagram. Everything was perfect, everything was beautiful. And there was this phase where lace bralettes were coming out. There was just pictures of these like non-underwired bralettes. And
I don't remember this, and I'm like older. I think I must have completely just missed this phase.
Oh yeah, the thing is, I had this conversation, and some people are like, "Oh my god, yeah, I remember that," and other people are like, "No," and I guess it just depends what you are watching. But anyway, so whilst I was in this finance job, I was like, right, these are really pretty. They're really photographic. Like, I'm going to try and make one. as a kind of just creative hobby to do whilst, after my job in finance. Anyway, I started making these, and then I'm really enjoying it. They were photographing beautifully. Friends were asking for them. Friends of friends were asking for them. It was the era where influencer marketing was not even influencer marketing. Like, it was very, very new. And, I had some of these really big, couldn't call them influencers at the time, but they were, who were accepting these handmade bralettes in exchange for exposure. And that is when I kind of accidentally started my first business. And because of the time that I launched, it was the right place, right time. The week before I went traveling, I made more money doing that than I did in my finance job. And I thought, wow, like, I'm actually onto something here. But anyway, I was like, I'm moving to Australia and I'm never coming back. Like, I am done with this. I'm done with living here. Like, I'm done with this. I'm going away. I'm not coming back. So I never really took it seriously. So then I went traveling and I ended up in Australia, and I was working as a receptionist for a corporate company in Melbourne. And that left me with loads of time on my hands. And I was sat behind a desk for, 8 hours a day, and just found myself researching how to start a fashion brand, how to source fabric, how to work with manufacturers. And it became really evident really quickly that that's what I was super passionate about. So I decided, I was like, right, I'm going to actually go home and try this. So I came home, I got a part-time job to kind of support me whilst I built the fashion side of things. I was like, right, I'll pick up where I left off, because I was making the same amount of money. I was making decent money when I left. So anyway, came home, but that was the space, a year had passed, more than a year had passed. Influencer marketing was very much a thing. You couldn't get free exposure anymore. You could now get bralettes and Primark for $5. Like, the whole market had shifted, and I'd basically missed the boat. So I was back to square one, and I was scrambled around for 2.5 years, was just scrambling around, self-taught, had no idea, reading every book, listening to every podcast, like asking anyone who would give me advice, like, how do I do this? And, I had a bit of savings, and I literally put like all of my life savings into getting this business off the ground. And then lockdown happened, fashion industry went dead for a few months. Like, everyone was panicking, no one was buying pretty lingerie in the first, 6 months of lockdown. So then I had to start again. And it was kind of like, that is actually when I first started the business, which is now known as Sister Brand. It had a different name then, but it launched in 2020 because, I don't know if you guys noticed, well, there was loads of new businesses that popped up out of lockdown as a result of lockdown. Yeah. A few of my friends being some of them. And because I had this experience and my background in marketing and communications, I started helping them. And then again, that spiraled out of control, and I was helping friends of friends. And then there was a point where I was running both businesses. I had the fashion brand and I had Sister Brand. And as time progressed, it became, again, really evident what I was most passionate about. And it was about helping others through this journey. Throughout this process, I then learned, I actually invested quite a lot of time and money in becoming a brand strategist. I was like, I actually want to learn like how brands are built by these multi-million-dollar agencies. Like, how do they do it? So I invested a lot of time in that. And that's when I started to realize why I couldn't get my fashion business off the ground, because I didn't understand the concept of a brand. 99% of small business owners really don't understand the concept of a brand, because no one's teaching them. That no one is teaching them it's not rocket science, but it's not being delivered in a kind of clear cut. This is the difference between a business and a brand. And without going off on too much of a tangent, I'm sure we'll get into it, but a business without a brand is stagnant. A brand is the reason why people want to buy from your business. So I had spent 3 years really questioning my intelligence, my self-worth, like, why the hell can I not make this work? It's because I didn't know what I needed to know. And as this journey progressed, that's when I was like, right, I'm closing the fashion side of things, and knowing what I know now with the experience that I have, I just want to give everything to helping other people, other women, to build their businesses and build their brands so that they can experience the success that everyone is capable of. You just need to have the right tools and the right framework to get there. So sorry, that is such a long introduction.
Yeah, it's quite similar to like what it is to help people. Like if you've good like wanting for helping other people, it does help a business.
In terms of like what you said again, because we want this conversation to be as open as possible, like of any person that is probably building a business or a brand which is working has most likely gone through a situation where something hasn't worked and they've reached burnout and they've reached this, that and the other. Do you I've had businesses before where I've had to shut them, and then everything I've learned, I've then had to and I now have the passion of everything I've learned teaching other people. But did you go through an aspect or a slight feeling within that transition of feeling like, you talk a lot about kind of like that self-sabotaging and stuff like that, and is that from learning from what you've gone through of actually it's teaching you to get to where you want to be, and that you've actually learned so much from that? Does that make sense, of like knowing that you are actually amazing at what you do and you're going to implement it to do even better?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely comes with practice, right? I remember the first couple of years, like the imposter syndrome was crippling, like paralyzing. I was very lucky in that I, just by chance, came across an amazing coach called Sam Laura Brown, who is the host of the Perfectionism Project. I came across her podcast very, very early on, and really, from what she was teaching, began to understand that, you know, I've always identified as a perfectionist, but I didn't realize until I started listening to her, like, just how much that kept me stagnant, because I wouldn't do anything unless it was perfect. I wouldn't do anything unless I knew the outcome of it, and I wouldn't do anything unless I knew I was good at it or I could be praised for it. I came across that very early on, and I'm so grateful that I did, because it's your mental health and your particularly your kind of like belief system and how you view yourself is literally that is how successful your business will be, depending on, you know, the stories that you're telling yourself. Like they're so interlinked and so intertwined. And I think, in answer to your question, like, I think at the beginning, doing something scary with the prospect of it failing the first time can literally be crippling. Like, it can paralyze you. But once you've done it once, and as you say, you've done it once, it's fucked up, and you sit with it, and you let it, it feels shit, and you've gone through the process of sitting with it and letting it feel shit. You can actually go through it and be like, okay, what data can I draw from this to try better next time? And there's always a silver cloud. There's always data that you can use to try better next time. And I think once you're kind of like on that hamster wheel of feeling like, it's almost like, and I was describing it the other day, like, I think if you don't have imposter syndrome when you are building a business, that is just that's a sign that you're stagnant. If you are growing and you are constantly evolving to that next level, you are always going to feel like an imposter, because you know, it's literally just a sign of growth. So I think once you're on that kind of hamster wheel of like, oh my God, I literally you know, going along, like, things are great, but I constantly feel like I'm gonna, you know, the rug's gonna be swept from under my feet. I constantly feel like someone's gonna call me out saying like I'm not set up for this. I feel like once you are on it and you've done it a couple of times, it does get easier. But, you know, in the beginning, I think in the beginning, you've got to just be brave and just be like, welcome things going wrong, because there is so, like, everything that has gone wrong in my business journey has led always has led on to bigger and better things.
Yeah.
So, saying that about that. So I'm curious, when you went traveling, afterwards, when you came back and you'd start point zero again, did you regret it? Did you regret going to do that traveling afterwards?
Did I? Oh, good question. I've never actually thought about that.
Because you have to make these decisions in life. Like I see with me, I have done I think it was 7 years of traveling in different countries, working in this industry, but in different countries. Whereas Jess went straight in and had a business before you were you had what, 2 clinics before you were
21.
Yeah. So basically, it's 2 different avenues. And if I had done it from the start and just went in, bang in there, but I never regret it because it's life.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think the thing is, because it's funny because I share this office building with a lovely girl called Megan, who's very similar. She's just turned 22 and, all of her friends have gone to uni. She started a business, very successful, turning over 6 figures in its first year. And she's saying, am I going to regret this? Am I going to regret not going to uni, not going traveling? And, I said to her, because I did do that. I did uni, I did traveling, and then I started the business. But as you say, I think everything leads to something better. And I think, and, if I didn't go traveling and I had have built the fashion business when, it was right place, right time, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't have closed the fashion business because, it probably would have taken off and been right place, right time. And actually what I'm doing now is because I actually realized when I closed fashion business, I wasn't really passionate about fashion. I was passionate about making something for myself. And what I'm doing now is so aligned with my core values as a person and what makes me feel good, how I want to live my life. So no, I don't regret it. And obviously, I was traveling. I went around Southeast Asia and Australia. I do not regret the amazing, beautiful life experiences. But yeah, it's an interesting one. But then again, I think everything, it's so cliche, but I really truly believe that, everything happens for a reason.
100%.
Yeah.
I think so as well. Whatever path you decide to take, or what did work, didn't work, what you learn from it, it makes people who they are today. You say about you. I was listening to something about you saying about the hustle culture of you don't agree with the hustle working culture. Do you think that has that come, because personally I agree with you, I don't agree with that at all, but I personally don't agree with it because I went through quite a big burnout a few years ago, where then it's made me be actually no, if you delegate the time properly and if you and everything like that, then you don't need to work in this hustle culture. It's obviously you make the business work for you, not you work for it, and all that sort of thing.
But I'm going to be devil's advocate here.
But yeah, she works her ass off. But what makes you believe about this non-hustle culture? What has made your mindset that way?
So I think it depends how you define as hustle, right? What you define hustle to be. Because I think hustle culture is almost attributed to this instant gratification, this world of instant gratification that we're in. Of course, if you're going to work your ass off, till 2 o'clock in the morning, every night, hustle, of course you're going to see the results. Because, that's what you need to do to get things off the ground. But I actually think, as I say, because it depends how you define hustle, because I still think of myself as a hustler, but I'm consistent and I prioritize my mental well-being, my relationships, other things that are important to me. And as a result, I don't burn out, because I've been there as well. I've been there, I'm going to work till 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 hours sleep, bash, go again. And of course you get those, results, but it's, as you say, it's not sustainable. So That's the key word. That's the key word in all of this, is the sustainability, and how you actually. I just think hustle is attributed to this, like, we have to do everything now, and for this instant gratification, get instant results. Whereas actually, I think I define hustle as consistency. Like, that's how I like to look at it. Like, because when you're consistent is when you see sustainable results.
See, the thing is you don't maintain anything sustainable. But I find with people is there's two avenues of that where I'm kind of like people.
I know what you're going to say, and I agree with you. I think.
They're kind of like it's kind of like, oh well, if I, it's like I should have like every evening to sit down and chill and everything like that. I'm like, but that's a job. If you want to do a job, I'll hire you, no problem. But if you want to have your own business, it has to be a little bit more. But I agree with you. I've done burnout, like I've done the 7 days a week. But it's funny because then the other part is Instagram and social media. So it's how you're perceived on it. And I have to find I haven't worked less than I do now. I work so much less than I do now, but because I post, because I have time to post, people think, oh, you've so much going on, the businesses are so busy, all of this, and their perception of you. So your business bills because you're posting, you're doing this, you're doing that, blah blah blah. But realistically, it's because I'm doing less, more time. And so it's funny, that perception.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I think the first couple of years you probably do have to feel like you're out of control and hustling all the time, because that's when you learn. I'm the same. I've built my business now, so I'm working less but earning more. And I've structured it in a way that is, more valuable for me and more valuable for my clients. But you have to obviously go through that to learn what that's going to look like and figure that out. But I agree with you in that I think I tend to not like kind of project this message of bashing hustle culture too much, because as you say, I do think sometimes, oh God, I have to be so careful what I'm saying, but some people will kind of use that as an excuse, like I've got to look after myself, like I can't burn myself up too much. It's kind of the same thing that there's a lovely girl whose podcast I was on, Georgia Alridge, I think. She's got the Success Stories podcast, and she did a post and was like, the people that say they don't have time to start their side hustle, they're the same people that just spent 8 weeks of their life watching Love Island. And it's so true. Like think of all the hours you've just lost there. So I do agree with you in that sense as well. You've got to be careful. Like but it all depends how you define hustle. For me, my mental health, my mental well-being, my relationships, my family, my friends, that comes first. But then equally, there was years when that didn't come first, and I don't know. Maybe I get to say that now because I've gone through the years of here we go. I've made the mistake. I failed at it. I'm like, this is not sustainable. I don't want to live like this, and then use that to make the changes. So it's a debatable topic.
Yeah, I do completely agree with that. And this is where kind of the fine line is, because people that we're helping to build their careers and build their businesses, and the people that you're helping to build their brands and help with their businesses and things like that, it's kind of trying to get that line across of you still need to like work hard, you still need to put the effort in, but we're showing you from our mistakes, and we're trying to not let you have to go through like the burnout and things like that, and to be able to learn from it. But then I also do think to a certain extent people don't realize the effort and the behind the scenes of what does go on behind a business to really make it work. And I think sometimes you almost in a way need to go through that every now and then to not then want to burn yourself out and start looking after your health and your family and things like that.
I think it's stress versus enjoyment balance, not hustle and sit in my arse balance. It's kind of like, if something stresses me out, then I need to do something that makes me happy again. It's like a therapist said to me years ago, it's refilling your cup. You have to make sure. So if I do something like when I'm teaching and I have a class and they're so great and they love it and all of that kind of stuff, that fills my cup. Do you know, that kind of way? That makes me happy. So that doesn't drain me or burn me out. And so that's still 8 hours of a day. But if I'm sitting in front of an accountant and they're killing me because I'm spending all our money, then that'll drain me out. So then I need to do something to make me happy afterwards, like spend again.
I think it's about Yeah, but I think it's almost like, just because you've got to kind of look at the long game and know that your kind of dial can't be turned up to 100 miles an hour the whole time. Like,
Yeah.
the effort that you put in is going to come in peaks and troughs, and it has to be in response to how you feel. Like, for example, the course that you were talking about that you signed up for, after that launch period, and I know this because it's not the first time around that I do it, but I know that launching drains me. When I'm in it, I am 100 miles an hour. I don't even have time to, speak to my fiance half the time. Like, we argue every launch season because he's like, you're not giving me enough time. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm in it 100 mile an hour. My dial is turned up to maximum. But then I know the month after that, I will not take on any other clients because I need the time to kind of like restore and find balance again before I'm ready to turn the dial up again. So I guess it's just being responsive to you, and particularly as women. Like, I found that in a month cycle, I have days where I can be like, I'm on top of the world, like I can do this, and there's other days where like I have to cancel all my meetings and come up with some excuse why I can't make, because I just can't talk to anyone today. So it's just, but then again, on the flip side, it's actually being honest with yourself and going, am I doing this because I actually need to look after myself, or am I doing this because I'm self-sabotaging because this feels scary, this is out of my comfort zone, like this is potentially new and I'm quite fearful of it. And actually being honest with yourself and saying, like, do I need to rest, or do I just need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and keep going?
Yeah. There is a fine line with that. Going into, depending on how kind of much you want to go into it, because I know that some listeners will want to hear about this, is, so we saw that you got engaged.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, very exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, obviously we don't want to get kind of like got too personal with it, but we have a lot of people who we talk to who have the mindset of obviously that entrepreneurial mindset, or have businesses, but a lot of them struggle with their relationships. So we would like to ask you like what potentially either you look for or what you feel like works, or any relationship advice for our business owners out there and us.
Yeah. No, I love that. I've never heard anyone talk about that before, but I agree. I think it's so important. And I'll probably go off on a tangent, but I think the underlying thing is communication is key. Like in anything in a relationship, right? Like communication is key in actually talking about it. But it's quite an interesting one because my other half is a tradie. He's a floor layer, and he's been working for the same company since he was 16. So goes to work, does the job, comes home and can switch off. Whereas me being an entrepreneur, like I'm constantly switched on, like constantly. I cannot leave my work at the door. So, I remember the early years of our relationship. I think because I felt quite insecure about myself at school and my abilities, my entrepreneurial journey has been a bit of a journey of proving people that I have what it takes. So I'm always like, right, what can I do? Like, how can I improve? Like, what's next? Like, I'm constantly going like, right, what's next? How can I do better? And because my fiance he didn't have to do that, I remember the early years. I remember us having a conversation, being like, I find it really unattractive that you're not ambitious in your work, and obviously that opened up a can of worms.
Thanks very much for that.
Yeah, but it's quite funny because I had again, it's the same conversation with other friends who are entrepreneurs and have partners who are in full-time work, but actually respecting that some people aren't like that. Some people are very happy, going to work, doing a job, compartmentalizing it and coming home. Whereas actually, funnily enough, so my partner's he's now buying the business that he's working for in next month. So now he's going to be an entrepreneur. So we're going to be a household of business owners, which I'm sure is going to bring this whole new wave of yeah, I'm a bit nervous about it, really. But yeah, that'll be an experience.
He'll have a better understanding of like all the things of, you know, the stress or why you just need to get something done at that time. I think that's the hardest thing. Do you know, it's like when you're like, oh, I need to get this done, and they might not understand, but why? Things can wait, and it's like, no, things can't wait.
Yeah, and it's quite funny. And I remember, actually, I just remember, because I think I listened to Stephen Bartlett's podcast quite a lot, and he was saying this in one of his episodes that, and I remember another one of these arguments we had was, because I'm so tied up in my work, all of the achievements, and this is, and you know, I admit this isn't like the right way of doing things, the right outlook on things, but all of the things that go right in the business are so tied up in my personal achievements. So I, you know, a couple of years ago, like loads of my reels were going viral, and people left, right and center were just saying like how funny these reels are, or how moving that is, or you're doing so amazing, blah, blah, blah. And I would never, ever get any of it from my fiance. And I remember being like, why are you not interested in work? Like, why do you not ask me what I did in work? Still to this day, I've accepted it now. He doesn't know what I do. He doesn't get it. Like, he really doesn't know what I do. And it wasn't until I was listening to one of Stephen Bartlett's podcasts, and he was saying the same thing. He remembers the early years when, you know, he was going traveling, getting all these accolades. Like, his girlfriend really couldn't give a shit. And it's because, you know, he said that he remembered her saying, like, I don't love you for your accolades and for your business success. I love you for you. Like, I'm interested in you, not the business. And it was a very similar conversation. Like, I had to be like, I'm not my business. My business is my livelihood. It's how I make money. So I had to be like, right, I'm totally separate for that. And the fact that he doesn't get it, he's not interested in it, doesn't mean he doesn't love me. He's not interested in me or getting to know me. But I remember the early stages being like, you know, every Tom, Dick and Harry, people who I hadn't spoke to in 10 years from school would come up to me and say, oh my God, like, you're doing so well, blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't getting that from my partner. It was really difficult. So that's something that has, you know, and I thought I was alone in that, but to hear Stephen Bartlett talking about it, like, gave me a lot of reassurance that, you know, it's quite common.
But also you can have the other way, which I think actually, you know, listening to that, and then also I did hear that episode with Stephen Bartlett as well, and it's like you can have the other way, like they fall in love with you because of the successful businesswoman you are. So then your traits are, how did you do today? How's business going?
Yes.
You know, all of that kind of stuff. And that's what I found was, actually, do you know who I am behind this? Like, do you know, I'm actually quite funny, or like I love to, like, do you know, the girls are finding this out.
You know what? I've never thought of that, but that's so interesting, because I remember in the early stages, like, because it used to really annoy me, and I used to kind of trick, and I fully believe in this now, but I used to trick myself by saying like, oh, I'm actually really glad that he doesn't ask me about work, because I get to come home and like, that's my home, like, I'm done. Now I'm actually, and that's how I kind of like talk myself into it, because I was still feeling self-conscious, like, why is my partner not praising me for work? Whereas actually, like, that statement is very much true, because I imagine if, you know, if I did come home, you know, saying, how many clients did you book today? What did you do? I'd be like, fuck off. Like, I just know I don't need that. Like, that's what I love that. And it's the same with my family. My family don't know what I do either, because they're just so far removed from the world that I'm in, that that is my escape. And, you know, bless him. And even my fiance's mum, she will very often on a Sunday, I'll go and see her and she'll ask, and I'm like, please, can we just not talk about it? I just don't want to talk about work. And actually I realize that that's the separation that I need to switch off and re-energize.
Yeah, and also you want your other half to see you and see like all your personality rather than, and that's what they're interested in. He's obviously not interested in the business, because he has no interest in that, and he's not going to pretend, and he just wants you, and that's sweet. Like, that is nice. But I can understand. I'd be so frustrated at the start as well. But then seeing it from the other point that I have gone through, now I'm like, yeah, I get it.
But then I guess I think if I actually unpack it a little bit further, I think, you know, at the start you know, I'm self-taught and I had so much imposter syndrome. I would look for praise in everyone to say that I was good enough and that I was, you know, getting things right. And I think, you know, your partner's probably, well, the most important person to, like, their opinion matters the most. So I was probably looking for that validation in him. And because I wasn't getting it, it just felt like this big, huge thing. But actually, you know,
it's because when they don't understand something, like when I opened up the education, it was only in aesthetics. So like this was 10 years ago, before peels, needling, anything was big. Nobody got it. So I didn't get that validation. But when I opened up a skin clinic, people understood my business. So they're like, oh, it's amazing you have a skin clinic. 5 years after I have my own business, my first business, the education. But it's that validation. And again, it's like, okay, now I can feel something because they understand what I'm doing. And so actually, no, I only need to validate myself.
Absolutely, yeah. But again, that just comes with time, doesn't it? I think it's particularly when you're first starting out, it does come from time and getting things wrong and getting through the other side and just, finding your way with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that is.
So basically, what I wanted to chat to you about also was the avatar, all of that kind of stuff. That's really interesting. So I was going through the course, and on the course, it's all about, you know, saying your avatar, having a look at your competitor, and then gathering all the information together for that. What's it called when it's the Disneyland, the Disney characters, you find them, and it all syncs together. It's so interesting the way you've done
your
it. Like
archetype. Yeah.
Really good for branding, like to kind of put it into different. So on Imogen's course, it's like you're putting your client or who you're into an archetype, and then when you look at those archetypes, you do see that everywhere, and it is really interesting way of doing things. So like, how did you come up with that with the branding?
So I definitely cannot take credit for that. So brand archetypes. So basically, archetypes is a framework that's been used in film and other areas for quite a long time, which basically identifies groups of people by personality characteristics. It's fairly new to branding. That's why it's not being spoken about. But as I say, it's been used in film quite a long time. But essentially what it is there's 12 different archetypes that we instinctively recognize. So 12 personality types. Don't ask me to list them all off the top of my head because I will probably make a fool of myself. But they're just 12 different personality types that we see. We engage with their personality characteristics, and we are like, right, we attribute that to a certain archetype. We go, that's that kind of person. So, you know, you can look this up on Google, type in brand archetypes on Google, and you will be able to find so much information on it. But essentially what it is, as you say, it's having a look at these archetypes and understanding them, and then going, right, which of these archetypes does our customer fit into? So what are their motivations? What are their core desires? What are their fears? What are their values? What are their opinions? What do they want from life? What's their outlook on life? And then once you've got an understanding of their archetype or archetypal mix of kind of two, no more than two, that can then give you an understanding of what they are looking for in the context of your offering. So to give you an example, let's take ice cream. You know, so and so you want, if you're wanting some ice cream, you're normally wanting comfort. You're wanting something to give you a bit of escape. Like you're looking for feelings of comfort, escapism. So a couple of examples of ice cream brands adopt different archetypes. You've got Haagen-Dazs, or any kind of like food, M&S food. They adopt what's called the lover archetype, which is all about like sensuality and luxuriousness. And, you know, you see the M&S food adverts and you're like, oh, like, that's so indulgent. Like, that's what I want. In the context of ice cream, that's what you want. Another example is like Ben and Jerry's. Like, it's all tongue-in-cheek humor. It's really bright poppy colors. Again, that's that escapism. And, you know, you're going, right, I want ice cream. Depending on your personality, obviously, this is obviously flavor and prices can play a vital part. But, you know, if you're wanting ice cream, you're wanting escapism, you're wanting comfort, so humor or indulgence is going to be more attractive to you in that instance. So it's about understanding who our customer is and going, right, in the context of whatever it is that we are offering, what are they looking for? Like, for example, if you had a really bad day at work and you had been, you know, told off by your boss and you wanted to like have some welcome relief where someone's going to like, or you didn't, let's say you didn't get a promotion, and you wanted some welcome relief, you might go to kind of like your jester archetype friend who's going to make you laugh and be like, oh, your boss is shit anyway, like, you know, you're in a dead end job anyway, something like that. But alternatively, you might want kind of like a nurturing archetype, like the caregiver archetype, like your mum. You might go to your mum and who's going to go, there, dear, like you're okay, and kind of like nurture you. Alternatively, if you decide, right, I actually really want this promotion, who's going to help me? You would look for kind of like a sage archetype, who is a guide, a leader, someone who's going to give you the tools to get to where you want to be. So it's a really valuable tool for kind of just, it allows you to put your blinkers on when you are developing your personality for your brand. So your tone of voice, your values, your opinions, and actually going, right, what are our audience looking for? And if our brand was a person, what kind of archetype would they adopt to attract that certain type of customer? It's fascinating.
Yeah, that is really interesting. That is like
Yeah.
you can real delve deep into that, can't you? Yeah, I think a lot of things that people can implement.
Yeah.
Anyone that's listening to this, we highly recommend to be listening to your webinars because they are amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. But in terms of like just going into a little bit about what you do, and the business branding and things like that, what is some kind of, let's go into some vital, I suppose, either information or things that you've learned or a couple of tips that people who are building their business can learn from you. Like, what are your main tips of building a brand, the biggest do's and don'ts, or the must-haves? Like, tell us some information.
Sure. Okay. So first of all, I want to start by distinguishing the difference between a business and a brand, because I know as small business owners, a lot of people really struggle. I know when I first started, I didn't know the difference. But so your business is just the functional thing that exchanges money and things. Like, it is, that's all it is just a functional machine. So how I like to demonstrate it is using the analogy of people. So if your business is the functional machine that exchanges money and things, me, you, everyone around you, that is the living, breathing, eating, shitting functions of a human being. That's all it is. Your brand is the reason why people want to buy from that business. So coming back to the analogy of human beings, our friends don't want us in their lives because of our bodily functions. They want us in our lives because of what we mean to them, our values, our opinions, the value that we bring to their life. That is a brand. So to have a successful business, you need to have a successful brand, because the brand is what will influence people to want to buy from that business. So that's really, if you're going to take away anything, it's that understanding that fundamental difference. Because, you know, you can all think of a time where we have bought something from a brand that we don't love, we don't particularly like it. There is a cheaper alternative. There is a more, you know, a better suited alternative, but we have bought into the brand because of the emotions that we associate with it, the perceived value that we associate with that, all of the stuff that's beneath the surface that we don't realize is there. that is what is working in the background on a subconscious level to get your customers to buy. So it's super interesting, and I could talk about it till the cows come home, but it's just like, you've also got to remember, like, everyone is the main character in their own story. We are all going about our journey, whether that's shopping for products or things or anything in life, with an internal narrative going, what is in it for me? What am I going to get out of this? Is this going to help me? Is this going to endanger me? What is going to be the outcome of this thing? And we bring that into, as consumers, we're always going, what is in it for me? And the what is in it for me is the answer to that question comes from the brand that they are presented with. This is what it will mean for your life. This is how we're going to fit into your life. This is what this means to you on your life journey. So that's the difference between a business and a brand. And I think it's not rocket science, right? It's just not being spoken about because you don't realize it's happening, because it's all happening in the subconscious. So people don't realize that it's there. It's like small business owners are very easy, and I made the same mistake. So this is no shame on anyone that has done this. Will go, right, I'm setting up a business. I need a logo. I need an Instagram account. I need a website. Whereas actually a brand is like an iceberg, and the bit that you see beneath above the surface is the logo, is the Instagram feed, is the general aesthetic. But actually, without any strategy beneath that holding it up, it's not gonna work. You're not going to attract your target customer. They're not going to attribute any feeling or emotion to your brand. Like, you're not going to get those sustainable results and have people raving about your brand, coming back for more, like choosing your brand over another, without doing the strategy beneath the surface that's going to hold everything else up.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah,
that's amazing.
That's so much good information. And obviously, like, we do recommend everyone to go have a look at Sister Brand and
thank you.
Because it is so important that you tell your story, because now there's so many stories out there. There's so many, like, products, services, everything, that you have to tell your story for you to stand out and play that role for someone to associate and like, and then buy it. Yeah, but it's lovely speaking to you, Imogen.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. I could literally chat about this stuff forever.
I know, this happens in every podcast. We're like,
no, really interesting. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, and hopefully, we'll catch up with you soon.
Amazing.